Three, two, one, go. You're listening to The Kyle Chambers Show.
And welcome to the Kyle Chambers Show. My name is Kyle Chambers, and I'm here today with Patrice Whiffen, and she is a multimedia sports media manager and host for the Kitchener Rangers and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Thank you for joining the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Can you share your story of how you got started in sports media?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I did not initially go to school for sport media. I was going to school at Western in London, and I was going for media information and technoculture, which was kind of an interdisciplinary program. And it kind of hovered over media, but it wasn't specifically broadcasting. And from kind of being in London and getting to know people in the community, someone had mentioned that there was an open audition for a television station that needed a sports host, and they were ideally looking for a female. They had a lot of male voices on the station already. They were ideally looking for a female, and they said, you know, you've got an outgoing personality. You like sports. You're pretty knowledgeable about sports. Why don't you, throw your hat in the ring? And so I went to the open audition and ended up getting the role. It was very kind of random, but very cool looking back at the story, and got that role. I was the television sports host for OUA sports within the City of London. So I was covering university athletics, and that was kind of my first initial kind of foot in the door in that space. And I worked with them for my full university term for 4 years, and then things kind of started to grow from there.
That's great. I was part of the Mountaineer Sports Network through Mohawk College sports program. I was a color commentator and also was on Indy 101.5 as a co-host as well. So it's great how things can build and grow off of that college experience, not just in the classroom, but also doing other jobs and things outside of the classroom as well.
Oh, absolutely. And it's great when you can apply what you're learning in the classroom to something while you're still getting your schooling, because then you can make mistakes, you can learn, you can grow, and the stakes are a little less high at that point. There's room for, that growth versus, when you get out into the work world, there are certain higher expectations. So it was a great learning opportunity for me. I had a lot of fun looking back at those tapes or DVDs or video clips. I cringe at particular times where I'm like, oh, like I seem so young or so green. But it was a great learning opportunity to work with them, and from there kind of branch out into other avenues.
How do you approach covering football and hockey differently?
I mean, the games are very different. So I think looking at sort of the game, the style of play, the pace of a game, that can sometimes dictate how I approach things. I think also within a hockey team, when you're looking at a team performance, there's less players. It's a shorter roster. Football is obviously a deeper roster, and I think with hockey, there tends to be a bit more of a focus on kind of like the superstars, whereas in football, I think it's easier sometimes to call out lots of other players. So I think preparation wise, you really have to look at the game, the style of play. And then also one thing that I think is important to note too is football has a much shorter season than hockey. So if something happens in a football game, it can be, whether it's good or bad, it can be definitely more impactful on kind of the season in general versus in hockey. If there's a really great game or a not so great game, you've still got 60 others in the regular season to fall back on. So I think there's different approaches in that sense. Obviously, the game is different, the rules are different, and the players are different, but that's kind of where my preparation stems from.
Do you find that there's more of a turnaround? Because with the Kitchener Rangers, it is under 20, so it's usually about a 3 or 4 year window at most for the junior players, as opposed to the Ticats, where they're still a turnaround, but they are professional, so they can be on longer term contracts. So do you find there's a more of a emphasis on turnaround with the Kitchener Rangers as opposed to the Tiger Cats with the superstars?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think with the Ontario Hockey League being a development league for sending players to that next level, I think that it's important to note it's hard to kind of base your uh, focus on one particular player because you're right, as you mentioned, they're not going to be there forever, and there's no guarantees, of course, in football either. But I think with the CFL being, a professional league, you're able to sign players for longer terms. Whereas I think the assumption and the understanding in the Ontario Hockey League is that players are going to be coming and going. It's that they're developing. We're watching them move to the next level, and there might be a superstar player that you have for a season, and then the next season they end up going on to the American Hockey League or the NHL or somewhere within university sports. So definitely a bit more turnover in terms of the players, but that's the expectation, and fans know that and support, watching these young players develop and move on to the next level.
How do you keep a good professional relationship with the players while also trying to get a good soundbite and trying to help the fans connect with the players that you're interviewing?
Yeah, I mean, I think being, professional, being real with them, I think my approach to journalism is never to make someone feel uncomfortable or make someone feel like I'm trying to get the dirt on them. It's not a TMZ style interview ever. When I interview people, I want to oftentimes tell their story. And with both the Kitchener Rangers and the Hamilton Tiger Cats, I've had a chance to meet with players and have them share their stories, what they're into, what makes them, whole off the field or off the ice. It's not just about their performance and the statistics, although that is important. I think a lot of times what the fans want to know is, who is this person? What do they like? What are they into? And what makes them who they are. And so being able to tell their stories of where they grew up and how they got into hockey and who their, you know, uh, favorite players were, what they do in their downtime, how do they relax, how do they prepare for a game, do they have any kind of cool, fun quirks, and that is sort of the uh, the place where I'm able to kind of connect with a player, still in a professional manner, but allowing them to talk about things that aren't just on field, on ice, because the athlete part of them is only one part of them, and I think that's what the fans see every night out on the field or out on the rink. Um, what they don't always get is the taste of who that person is as a whole. So I think that's really what I try to do with my interviews.
That's good. I remember because I was at Mohawk College and you taught me when I was at Mohawk College in the radio and creative content program, you'd even ask questions like for some of the players that like Pokemon, for example. So you'd ask the Ticats what their favorite Pokemon character was and such. So it's great you're able to connect with the players on that level.
Definitely.
With the rapid changes in sports media and in media in general, how do you see things evolving and your role evolving for the next 5 or 10 years in the future?
Yeah, I mean, so much change has happened even since that very first, television job that I had. I mean, that was back in 2007. And so from 2007 till now, there's been massive growth, massive change. I think the biggest piece that I see that I continue to see is I guess one of two things, and I'll go through both. The one change I see is anyone really can be their own broadcaster. You don't need a massive network. And so there's all of these followings that are popping up that uh, people can engage with, people like yourself who are hosting their own podcast. They can engage with other fans. So you don't necessarily need to be hired by a big network to end up creating your own community of sports fans. And um, I think it's inspiring because it almost provides a platform that is uniquely your own and something that you can build and grow very organically. So I think that's one change that's happened. That definitely was not really a thing back in 2007 when I first started. You needed to get that corporate television job or radio job. Social media was only in the very infant stages. So I think there's a lot of tools out there right now for individual people to create their own following and share their own stories and do their own thing. There's a ton of tools out there, and I think that will continue to evolve. And then the other kind of major change, I think, is that the average viewer, the average fan, is not just going to a game and watching the game. They're interacting with so many different things on their phone. There's the social media aspect, there's the sport betting aspect, there's fantasy sports, there's so many other pillars to sports fandom that creates this all-encompassing sort of community of sports fans, but it also presents so many different opportunities to get involved in other things in order to kind of be a part of the industry. There's so many other little pockets that you can jump into. And I think the sport world in general is expanding. The fandom world in general is expanding. And so I think it's an exciting time because there's so many different opportunities, but there's also so many ways to make your own opportunity. And I think that's a really cool time too.
Yes, we're seeing it a lot with sports betting and sports gambling. It used to be back in the day, it was the Super Bowl. That was the time where people traditionally gambled and things of that nature. But now you're seeing it in the CFL. It might be a game between the Alouettes and Ticats on August 5th, and now we're seeing people do over-under on that as well. So I think
Yeah.
gambling is an interesting part of it, and there are different laws and rules in the different areas, but we are seeing stars on these different platforms go on commercials and help promote gambling. So I think it is an exciting part of sports, and I think you're going to see more and more, even like a podcast company like Spit and Chicklets. They've been really good with promoting what they do, and they're becoming a more legitimate journalism platform for people that actually listen because it's a casual way of saying what's going on instead of having just traditional hosts up on a major sport network saying what's going on in the sports world.
Oh, absolutely. It's making sports maybe more accessible, more relatable, and providing that different personality. Everyone who listens to Spit and Chicklets, like they love the camaraderie between the hosts. They love the, chirping among the hosts. That sort of vibe may not be able to be present on, a network television station, but it's provided on a platform where people can still listen, connect, and again, the opportunities are quite incredible.
What's your favorite moment as a sports host for you as far as being on the field with players or covering a sporting event for either the Ticats or the Kitchener Rangers?
That's a tough one because I feel like there have been so many incredible moments. I think when the I worked with the Hamilton Bulldogs as well and was their in-game host as well as doing the radio show for the London Knights. So I think I did the pregame show for the London Knights for a lot of years. And one of the coolest moments was interviewing players the year that they won the Memorial Cup. I think that was a pretty incredible accomplishment, obviously for the team, but being a part of the media team for that, I think was definitely a highlight. When the Hamilton Bulldogs, now the Brantford Bulldogs, but when the Hamilton Bulldogs won the OHL finals, that was an incredible moment, being able to interview players. In Kitchener, the one of the most exciting games for me is the teddy bear toss game and being able to interview the player who scores the initial goal to make all of the teddy bears fly onto the ice, and all of them, of course, get donated to children in need around the holidays. And interviewing that player in that moment, it's crazy because it's a regular season game. It doesn't mean anything outside of the regular season, but because the fans are just like packed into the arena and the fans are all just like on the edge of their seats waiting for that goal to be scored, that player, when they score that goal and they come and do the interview, they might as well have won the Stanley Cup. Like, it is an incredible moment. The fans are going crazy for them. The Bears are flying. They know it's for a good cause. So having that ability to do that interview each year has been also a very cool moment and something that may not necessarily mean much as far as on paper or a championship or anything like that, but knowing that they're giving back to the community, knowing that the fans have been anticipating this goal I think is just a really beautiful moment. And those are some highlights for sure.
Thank you so much for joining the show today.
Yeah, of course. Happy to chat. Thanks so much for inviting me.